Okay, let's do it. So, yeah, I promise you're in good hands. I've done this a few times before and in a bunch of different capacities. So, thank you, Phil, for the introduction. I'm back again, would you believe it? Since February, when we delivered the 11-part How ChatGPT Works series, right into the technical details, really intricate, really detailed, really confusing, and frankly, not the important stuff. Today, you guys, you get the important stuff because this is how you leverage or harness ChatGPT to do your bidding and supercharge your skill sets in all different kind of real-world applications rather than fiddling around with details. And then recently, just before this, we did something on breakthroughs in AI, and this was like the hands-on coding. But this is really going to be full-on focus about ChatGPT. So I'm going to make it well worth your while. I'm going to make it as interactive as I possibly can, and give you guys a lot of chance to put what I'm going to teach into practice, so that you can make sure that you actually take something away from this, and I'm not just going to stand here and lecture you for 2 hours, which you might be expecting. So thank you for being here, even on that premise. As we go through, if I leave anything out, or if you're curious, or you just want to break, or you want to engage, feel free to throw a hand up or just shout out, and we can dive into it. I think we've got quite a lot of time, so we should be pretty flexible. And if anything's not clear, you can just shout out. So, sound good? All right, let's do it. So firstly, just to get started, let me figure out how this works. As Phil said, I'm Harry Berg. I'm a full-time AI educator. I have been a founder running my own company in the AI education space for the past 5 years. I've been training people to be data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, and machine learning engineers. And as of very recently, this might be news to some of you, but I've recently sold my stake in that company so that now I'm onto a new chapter. So overall, in that whole process, as well as kind of a lot of university collaborations, which I've talked about, some at Oxford, some other places, I've probably taught more than 2,000 students. I think it's probably a lot larger than that, but I try to be modest. And I think I've probably done a lecture like this 100 times. So strangely, this seems to be something I really enjoy. I can imagine that a lot of you would not enjoy being up in front of so many people, so many bright and sharp people, to have to explain some of the most complicated systems that have ever been engineered. But for some reason, I find that really interesting. So here I am. And so the next chapter, what does that look like? Well, basically now I've been advising businesses on how to develop and execute their AI strategy. And I think that's the next level of impact you can have in education, when it goes from educating individual people to educating groups of people, all focused on the same company, all focused on the same problem, who are going to get together and drive that in the same direction. So that's what I'm focused on now. And this is a real landscape shift, okay? So I think it's important for you guys to see this, because my opinion personally is that we're about to face an AI apocalypse. And I'm not talking about the Terminator scenario, but I am talking about an apocalypse of businesses and an apocalypse of jobs, because a lot of this stuff is really going to change, and you need to be ready for that transition. Hopefully, we can get through some of that today. If you want to connect with me, scan a QR code, and you can follow everything I'm doing, which isn't directly at Oxford. Any questions about background? We good? Cool. All right. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to try and deliver as much possible value as I can in the next 2 hours. Firstly, I'm going to bust 7 common ChatGPT myths. Then I'm going to talk about applications beyond just a new search replacement. And then I'm going to talk about 6 best practices that you can apply in any use case, because I know you guys are coming from a wide, varied background. So it's going to be applicable across the whole horizontal landscape. Then I'm going to go into my favorite part, 3 secret practical ChatGPT techniques, some of the stuff that I personally have been using on a day-to-day basis, which I think are, they're just the biggest efficiency gains. So I'll try and point those out to you, and they'll be like a real good set of tools that can go in your toolkit and that you can leverage. And then I'll talk about how ChatGPT destroyed all of my company data at one point. I'll tell you the story there. So stay tuned for that. And then 6, I want to talk about how to find prompts, because a lot of times you have an idea of what you want, but I'm going to give you a lot of techniques, but you don't know how to write that down straight away. So how do you actually get to that iteratively if that's what you need to do? And then we'll go through some examples. I've got 3 poorly written prompts, but by that time, you guys will be experts in adapting these prompts to get them much more close to what you want. So we'll improve those together. And then finally, I want you guys to get thinking about it now, because we're going to improve your prompts live. So if there's any problems you guys are having, anything that you find these new AI systems are not capable of, well then come up with a prompt and we'll talk about it after, and we can apply everything we've learned to do those live and see how much better of an output we get. Does that sound good? Can I get a hell yeah? I said hell yeah. All right, okay, good. So let's do it. So I'll just take a 2-minute break here. Please grab this, because this is going to give you access to everything I'm going to go through, so you can see it nice and clearly in front of you. You can follow along live if you want. There's a lot of prompts in there which I want you guys to take and improve, so it'll be useful to have this so you can copy and paste them. I'm also going to use this to send you the follow-up recording, so you've got this for the rest of your life, for as long as it remains useful, and so you can join me to survive the AI apocalypse. That's what we're going to do today. So take 2 minutes, grab that stuff, fill in your email, and then it'll redirect you to this, but it'll also send you an email as well, so you've got everything there. All right. And any questions in the meantime? Shout out, grab me. Okay, cool. So I think everybody's got that now. So like I said, start thinking of some prompts. We'll improve them together at the end. So if there is anything you're struggling with, anything you're just curious about, can it do this? Or you haven't been able to prove that it can on your own, save them, and I want you to shout them out to me at the end. But firstly, let's get started with the ChatGPT myth busting. So real quick, rapid fire. I want you to do hands up if it's true, hands down if it's not true, okay? So, firstly, is it true? ChatGPT does not fact check its results. Is that true? Is that true or is that false? Okay, cool. All right, no hands up. ChatGPT can access websites on the internet. Is it true? Raise your hand if it's true. Lower hand if it's false. Okay? OpenAI can see who's making requests. Can they see who's making each request? Hands up, hands down. True? False? Hands right up in the air, everything's true? Okay, ChatGPT has access to up-to-date knowledge. True or false? True or false? How up-to-date is the question. The best prompts look like Google searches because ChatGPT is effectively a new search engine. Would you say that's true or false? Best prompts look like Google searches. Okay? You should not share sensitive information with ChatGPT. Is that something you should not do? Or is it okay if you do that? Okay? All right, I'm watching you. Shorter prompts are better prompts. True or false? Nice and concise, probably easier to process, right? Is that true? Or is that false? Okay. ChatGPT learns from your interactions as you use it. Is that true? Or is that false? Time to bust it. So here's the answers. Common, untrue myths about ChatGPT. We're going to go through them one by one and break them down, but quickly. These are myths. So the 7 things I'm about to say, they are not true, okay? ChatGPT has access to up-to-date knowledge. No, it doesn't. It's got a cutoff date from a few years ago. Number 2, another myth, ChatGPT has access to the internet. No, it doesn't. It's all stored in its internal parameters and it cannot go and search the web like you might think. Number 3, ChatGPT fact checks its results. No, it doesn't. It can't do that. And often it might tell you something very confidently that's incorrect. So be careful. Number 4, the best prompts look like Google searches. Another myth. It's not really just a new search engine. So there's a lot of different techniques that you can use to improve your prompts, and they're not going to look like ChatGPT. They're not going to look like Google prompts, Google searches. They're not going to look like Google searches when you've used all the techniques that I'm going to teach you about today. Shorter prompts are better prompts. Another myth, often with these new systems, you can give it a great load of detail so that you can get the full and complete answer in the exact format you want straight away. But you need to give it more information so it has that context of what you're looking for exactly. Number 6, it's okay to share sensitive information with ChatGPT. No, it's not. I think you all got this one right. Good. Keep that stuff to yourself, especially company data, especially personally, what's it called? PPI data, I think. Keep that to yourself. It's number 7, and final myth. ChatGPT learns from your interactions in real time. I saw a lot of people get this wrong. It does not learn from your interactions in real time. And we're going to talk about the kind of memory that it uses and the way that it works so that it might seem like it is doing that at some point. So let's get into details to break that down. So myth number 1, ChatGPT has access to up-to-date knowledge. Is that visible? Raise your hands. Is it visible? It's not very visible. Okay. Can I zoom in? Might have a bit of trouble with that. You've all got it on your own screens anyway, but hopefully that's visible. So that's a myth. It doesn't have access to up-to-date information. It's got a cutoff date from September 2021, or most models do. And this comes from the fact that it's trained on data, which is web data and other forms of text data that were generated before that point. So that's what the current data set leading up to the best state-of-the-art models uses right now. It's old data. It's almost 2 years old. So you got to be careful of that. And here I've given an example. My question was, what movie released the same day as Oppenheimer? Everybody knows the answer, right? Of course, it was Barbie. And here it kind of highlights it itself. As of my last update in September 2021, there was no information about even a movie called Oppenheimer. So clear example there. It doesn't know these things, which we clearly all know because we all went to see one of those movies, but not ChatGPT. So it doesn't have access to up-to-date knowledge. Second myth, it has access to the internet. You would not believe the amount of people in businesses which I'm advising that do things like provide links in their prompts for ChatGPT to go and query, or ask it to go to certain websites and extract certain data. It cannot access the internet. And there's a whole host of reasons there, and the implication of that is that it might come back to you with information that looks like it went to the website and did that, but in fact this may be what you call a hallucination, something where it's very confidently explaining to you what I found on the website or what was at that link, and in fact it didn't even go there. So you've got to be careful of that. That's a really important one to know. ChatGPT does not have access to the internet as of yet. There's some plugins coming about, maybe the search with Bing stuff they're figuring out, but not released. And so just be careful if you're trying to do research or you're trying to get answers to questions that depend on some external knowledge. Just be careful that it may be hallucinating this stuff to you. So where is all of the knowledge then? It's all in the parameters of the model. Now, we don't really need to worry about the details here, but ChatGPT is a product which uses a GPT model, generative pre-trained transformer. And what that is a big neural network, basically a mathematical function. It takes in some input text, gives you some output text, and the mapping between those two things, that's the machine learning model. That's this seemingly magical system which can generate new text or make useful predictions. And the way that they work, just like a mathematical function, is they have some parameters. So you have just an equation. It's got some numbers like 3x plus y or whatever, 3x plus 2y. The 3 and the 2 are different parameters. Input comes in. If those parameters change, then the output's going to change as well. And so all of the knowledge, so kind of incredibly, but stored in ChatGPT, all of that wide-ranging knowledge is stored just as numbers, which really represent things like how important is a certain word relative to other words, how do the words relate together. Really just a big matrix of numbers. But my point is that it doesn't have access to the internet. So it's not looking up stuff. It's just using that knowledge that's already been encoded in its own kind of brain parameters, and that's what it uses to make the predictions, the output text for you. So this is the example which I've seen a bunch of times. It's something like, hey, go and check out this link and tell me the answer. And often Seems like less and less, seems like they're figuring things out, but often it can come back with a very strongly confident example of what it found on that website. Be careful of that. So another one, probably an obvious one, but again, you'd be surprised of what you see, especially in older companies. Generated responses are not necessarily truthful or correct. You must read and critique the responses which you get. It's certainly if you're using this for research, or yeah, if you're using this for research, you need to be careful of that, because these things are not necessarily factually correct. I remember I was showing an example back in the day when GPT-3 launched, and I said, look at how good it is. It's come up with this really coherent text. I hadn't even read the text, and it was talking about something like the Earth being the next planet next to Jupiter, or something along those lines. So it's very easy to look at the text, scan it, and say, looks good, roughly. But in reality, if you actually do your research, I didn't even notice that one. Stupid. But you've got to do your research, and you've got to make sure what it's giving you back is factually correct. So don't count on it. And again, likely to sound very convincing, even if not. So you must validate the responses. Challenges. All right, let's take 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to walk around, and I want you guys to complete these challenges that relate to a few of the different myths that we've seen so far. If you can't see that, check it out in the slides, which you should have access to. So the first one, checking it has up-to-date knowledge. Can you try to find the exact cutoff date by searching for events that happened in that month? I've told you it was September 2021, but can we actually find, okay, what date was it? Is there a news event that it does or doesn't know about that was on September 16th? Or was the cutoff before then? First challenge. Second challenge, try to get ChatGPT to create you a fake link that doesn't exist online. This is often the way that the lack of access to the internet manifests itself. It will show you something that looks really confident, like a GitHub repo or like a link to a news article, and that news article might be www.news.com/climate change or whatever you were searching for, but it's really just a completely made up link. So you have to be careful if you're putting that in your work and using that as a reference, because it may simply not exist. So try and get it to create a fake link. It seems to fake GitHub repos quite a lot, so check that one out. And then final challenge here, make ChatGPT hallucinate by getting it to confidently provide information that you know to be fake. This one might be harder because they seem to be getting better and better at forcing ChatGPT to announce itself that it has a lack of understanding. So take 10 minutes to do that. Any questions, shout them out. Anything you want to demo, I'll show you here. I'll also walk around and answer any questions about those myths. All good? Let's do it. Should we give it a go? Up-to-date knowledge. Come on, you guys could do that one. We can do that one together. This is a real warm-up. Give me something that it should know, which maybe it doesn't. When's the cutoff date, my friend?
Exactly.
Roughly, or the month? September 2021, exactly. Yes, so tell me something that's happened since the last 3 years. It's an easy question. You should get this one. Any famous person done anything?
I'm not sure if it's possible, but Elizabeth specifically.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. How's the Queen doing? If you're inquiring, I reckon checking, yeah, latest news about the Queen. Doesn't seem to notice anything strikingly obvious, so yes, she's fine, according to ChatGPT. Great one. Fantastic, cool. Well, not fantastic that she's not doing fine, but the cutoff date is clearly limiting its knowledge there. Did anybody manage to find the exact rough cutoff date? Did anybody find a news story that was pretty prominent that wasn't found? Nodding your head. What did you find? Did you find something? Roughly? Anything like what's the rough cutoff date? No? Pass it to a friend? Your neighbor? Did you find anything? She's trying hard. She's trying hard to look at it. Okay, well, let's look it up, right? You know, what I would have done there if I wanted to find something like that, September 2021 news, something like that. Okay, what happened in 2021? Let's take a look. Okay, September, 1st. All right, let's go to the 16th. Let's do a binary search halfway between. Let's tell me about the 9 swimmers in the Mediterranean Sea or the COVID-19 pandemic. What else we got here? Anything strikingly obvious? So tell me about the Armenian government's filing charges against Azerbaijan in the International Court of Justice. Let's try that. Doesn't seem to know anything about that, okay? So September 2021, the cutoff date was clearly before the 16th, okay? And go through that process if you want to find exactly when it is. That's how I would do it. That's just a thought experiment, really, not going to be anything too practical. Has access to the internet. Anybody managed to get it to create a fake link? Any techniques there? Did anybody try and say, give me the top 100 news websites and search any of them? Nodding your head, find something? Yeah? So, what was that? Okay, that's cheating. Give me a fake link. Okay, anyone managed to get it to confidently give you, here's a link? In reality, it doesn't work. Shy? Okay, let me try it out. I'm going to go new chat. And I'm going to say something like, give me 100 of the best GitHub repos for some, let's say some like very kind of strange topic, right? Like for reading about news on the royal family. Keep the example going. So like these things, okay, can't provide me a list of links. Okay, it says go to github.com. Let's try that again, but let's try news sources. See if we can get it to do anything else. News websites. Okay, and I'm gonna say give me their web address. Run that, let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So I have done this before, but now it seems we're getting to a good point, right? So thankfully, I can't complete that task. But always remember, if you give it a link, it's not going to be able to go there. And hopefully these days it'll make it clear to you, I can't search that. This is, I'll just make a note, this is less of a problem if you're using the graphical user interface where you can always see what the response is. However, a lot of you probably know that you can also have programmatic access, accessing ChatGPT with code, and that code could be running on a server somewhere that you're not seeing these back and forth responses. And if you've got some kind of code in there which takes the response, looks for links in it, and then puts them straight into the next part of the pipeline, you might have an issue there because ChatGPT may have said something like, this link is not, here's a few links, I'm not sure if they're valid, but you might have missed that warning. Okay, and final one, I'm not going to try this one because I think it'll be harder, but did anybody get ChatGPT to hallucinate anything? Tell anything confidently? I'm seeing lots of nodding heads, yeah. Did you find anything? Okay, well, interesting. Yeah, so it's like a halfway cheat, but I like it because you said, give me the information, but give me stuff that you're not confident about. And so if you kind of give it that priming, well, then seems to be able to produce hallucinations. Cool. Any other examples? No, cool. All right. Well, let's keep moving. So another myth: best prompts look like Google searches. They do not, I don't think. So when you Google search, what you expect is to have to click through things, right? When you make a search, you expect to have to look at the links and then dive into them deeper. So what that means is that the most effective Google searches are when you type something very rough and quick that gets you to those links quickly. However, I think there's a significant difference between search systems and chat systems Because chat systems, they have the ability to reply to you with exactly what you want in the first attempt. With a chat system, you don't need to expect to trawl through links after. So, to me, that says if you can provide prompts which are maybe much longer, much more detailed, but much more specific about what you're looking for, then you can get that answer immediately instead of having to go through and do that searching yourself on the different links. So I see a lot of people in companies using ChatGPT for their work and making chat prompts, which are something, like Python lists or, what was the other example? People search like marketing plan techniques or something like that, and they put that into ChatGPT, and that's not really going to get them close to the actual whole output which they really want. So we'll get to the techniques for doing that in a moment, but best prompts don't look like Google searches. Similarly, I'll skip over this one, but shorter prompts aren't better. Here's an example where I've got weather in New York. It might be something that you search, but if you give it a long prompt, you could get the exact details you're looking for immediately. So if you ask for talking about, temperature, precipitation, and wind speed, maybe those are 3 key things you're looking for, and you can get them all back immediately. Again, watch out though, because this don't have internet access. Unless you're using the web plugin, like my friend up there is, he confused me a lot by having a Google Chrome extension, which is editing the ChatGPT page and injecting internet data into its own prompts. So that doesn't seem to be something which doesn't seem to be something which OpenAI supports, but it is something that was working for our friend. So WebGPT is the name of the extension if you do want to plug in internet research into your prompts. Check that out. Challenges, again. So let's just do 5 minutes quick time here. Try and run through these things. I want you to firstly compare the difference between Googling and prompting ChatGPT with these 2 questions. See which of them are easier to do with a Google prompt, with a Google search, because some of them are, and which of them are easier to do when you use a chat system. And then try out short and long prompts for maybe these things. How can you get specifically to what you want? And then thirdly, the myth which I didn't cover there is that ChatGPT learns from your instructions in real time. Try this challenge, and then we'll come back to that one in a second. So take 5 minutes, grab me if you need me. Okay, did anybody find places where it's still much easier to just do a Google search to find something out compared to using a search system, using a chat system like this? I'd reckon the weather is probably a good one, right? I gave that stupid example, but I reckon if you want to know the weather, it probably is still easier to use a search system. Whereas if you'd have to type that into ChatGPT, like I did in this example, it's just a bit of burden to have to do that. So point there is there's definitely applications where it's still a lot easier and better just to use a search system rather than a chat system for the simple stuff. But I do think it's worth emphasizing, guys, if there is something you want to search up, and using a search system, you're going to have to go into each link and click through it and research. I promise you, there's probably a better way to do that with a chat system, because you can give it different parts of the prompt, which give me this exact information, the kind of information that you'd have to go into the different links later and search for. So, all right, there's one more thing which I must have not included that here. But there's a myth here which I want to talk about, which is ChatGPT learns from your interactions in real time. So a lot of people said, yes, it does. It does learn from your interactions in real time. But I think that there's 2 clear things to separate out here. One of them is that, yes, in the same chat, ChatGPT does seem to know what we were talking about previously. What I want to emphasize is that's not it learning. That's not it actually changing its internal parameters so that it knows that subject better. It's just that the entire previous conversation is included under the hood in the prompt, which gets sent to ChatGPT. So it's kind of like the difference between long-term memory and short-term memory. The long-term memory comes from the model which read billions of pages of the internet. And that's where it got these internal kind of dials from that control the parameters. And then the short-term memory, which is basically everything that can fit in the prompt. Everything you might call the prompt the context. Everything that can fit in that context window. That's the stuff which it can directly see the text for and recall when it comes to producing the outputs to your prompts. So that's the way it can kind of seem like it learns from your interactions. However, if you talk about one thing in one chat and switch over to a different chat, the system does not take any of the knowledge with it. Those two things are completely separate, and you should not count on all the information which you gave it about a project in one chat transferring over to another, because it's very unlikely. Well, it's those things are not connected. So, yeah. However, there is an option to allow OpenAI to train on your conversations. Has anybody seen that? There's a switch you can select. It says, do I accept or do I not accept for OpenAI to train on my conversations? If not, look in the settings over here somewhere, and you will find data controls here, as well as a few other things. So if you don't want ChatGPT to take all the conversations with you having it for any reason, then you should make sure to deselect that, because I think it's on by default. And the reason I mention that is because gradually, I think the September 2021 cutoff date will move forward as they take batches of data and train the system on those. So, then you'll have it up to September 2022 and so on, until they kind of figure out a way to make sure that it's not going to do anything malicious with more and more updated data sets. Cool. So yeah, just highlight there. ChatGPT does not learn from your interactions in real time. So let's be honest with ourselves here. Which of these caught you out? Number one, did you think that ChatGPT has access to up-to-date knowledge? No, everybody got it right. Did you think ChatGPT has access to the internet? Yeah, good. And did you learn that ChatGPT does not fact-check its results? Did you learn that? Yeah, cool. The best prompts look like Google searches. Was anybody thinking that before? Now they think differently? Yeah, cool. And shorter prompts are better. Anyone prone to writing really short prompts just like you would do a Google search before? Okay, not many with that one. Anybody, I won't make you answer that one, sharing sensitive data. But did anybody, I think the biggest one is think that ChatGPT learns from your interactions in real time. I think a few of us thought that before, right? Yeah. So that one, just be careful of. Certainly not transferring information from different chats, certainly not storing anything about the current chat, unless you got that data option ticked. It might be using it later. Great, so applications beyond using ChatGPT as a search engine. I would want to just talk through these quickly. If you guys aren't aware, this may be foundational stuff to you, but hopefully it's useful for at least a few of you out there who haven't realized a lot of this stuff. So, question, is ChatGPT a new kind of search engine? Is that it? Where you can basically ask it something like you would previously Google and get the information back? Or is it something much more? I think what highlights that is these four applications, which are applications beyond using ChatGPT as a search engine. Not only can it get you back this information, but you can easily delegate tasks to summarize, elaborate, transform, or extract information from some text which you've got, or some information which it already knows. And these things, I think, are distinct from a lot of the functionalities of traditional search engines. So let's talk through those. Firstly, summarization. This is where you can take a big body of text you could provide to it and ask it to summarize that information down. You can also do this in different styles, which I'll talk about in a second, such as saying, can you summarize this in this format? Maybe in this format of bullet points, in this format of separate paragraphs, in this format of introduction, body, ending. Can you summarize this in a way that a 5-year-old could understand? So here's a few little prompt snippets which might be useful for you if you're doing summarization tasks. Anybody example of summarization tasks you've done recently? Any examples? I was recently in a meeting. We recorded the meeting. I wanted to summarize the notes, so I copied the transcript, gave it to ChatGPT and said, can you summarize this in the format of bullet points in a way that I could share with my team? It's my style. So that kind of summarization technique. Elaboration. So here you can have the system either retrieve internal knowledge from the GPT model to add information to a topic, to elaborate on that topic, or you can give it a specific topic or specific information to elaborate on. So this is where you can, I think this is a real efficiency gain if you can say, let's say I'm writing a paper, and I know the format it's going to have, I know the rough topics it's going to have, I can give it to them in a shortened format, and I can say, elaborate on this to give me a template of where I might go from here. I think that can be a really useful application. So a few examples of the elaboration, you might do something like, it says here, explain the organizational structure of the House of Parliament. That's it, you've given it a topic, okay, please elaborate on this topic for me. So it's kind of the new frontier of information search, is this elaboration. Classic, come up with 10 ideas for my new ad, my ski goggle ad. You give it that little part of the prompt, 10 ski goggle ads. Can it come up with a whole comprehensive list of the detailed things that would need to go into those ads? And then another elaboration thing would be, given this paragraph, we'll write the next paragraph. So here's just a small bit of text again. Please elaborate on that and write the next part. Hopefully, I know you guys are shy, but hopefully you can see where this could begin to apply to your own work, right? So take a moment to look at these prompts and think about where they'd fit into the stuff that you do. Okay, I'm going to blast through this and get to the fun stuff again. So another key task beyond search is this transforming, taking one type of text and transforming it to another. So I'll give a few examples here. Take this text and transform it into the style of a scientific journal. So you can imagine something written, maybe it's written on Reddit, and you want to take it straight from there and put that as a reference, or at least a kind of a thought that you're using in some of the work that you're making. You can say, in the style of whatever I'm writing in, the style of a scientific journal or whatever. Another one I really like to use is formatted in bullet points. You can give it some text and say, hey, can you please transform it so that it's written in bullet points, maybe with short sentences. All these kind of things are ways that you could transform the input. Or you might find a nice analogy to your work that you want to say, okay, take this piece of text and replace what it's talking about with my subject, or replace X with Y in any format. Maybe it's even just a case of, hey, I've got this page-long document, I've got this page-long message which I sent to my friend. I want to send it to my other friend as well, but it's got person A's name all written throughout. Can I give it to the system and say, hey, replace Harry with Joe? And from there, you've had this transformation from X to Y. Okay. And then the final one I'll mention here is extraction. So get the information out of input. If you provide reference text, then it's very easy to have these systems extract out the key parts of it. So we've totally blown past the limitations of natural language understanding at this point. We can completely delegate to these AI systems and say, get the key information out of this text format. And also, it can incorporate its own internal knowledge that is developed by using the base model. So some examples here: extract the year of incorporation of the company from this text, and you provide the text. You could give it 10 other different things to extract as well. You could say, sorry, I've copied those from the last one. So, any questions about that? Different kind of techniques. What were they? Can anybody name one of those techniques? Summarizing, yes, that's one. Any others? Elaboration, heard that one. And the third one? Transforming. And the fourth one? Extraction. Great, you guys are killing it. That's awesome. So next, what I want to get to is prompting best practices. So now we're kind of past those myths. Hopefully you understand the basics. Hopefully you've got really strong foundations. I want to start helping you to be able to write better prompts. So here is a number of techniques which I want to go through with you. And we're going to apply an example as we do this one by one. So ask for what you want in detail. Provide context to the question that you're asking. 3, demonstrate examples. 4, assign a persona to the model so it applies in the style that you want. 5, go back and forth with the result. Don't try and expect to get what you want just from the first message. And 6, ask the model to think. And I'll show you what that means when we come to it. So there, my 6 ChatGPT prompting best practices. So firstly, ask for what you want. A lot of people ask these chat systems to perform a task, but don't give it anywhere near the level of detail that they actually need to understand how to get what you want from it back. So I think my tips here would be specific, clearly format your input, ask for structured outputs, and specify the desired length. I think the last one is simple to explain. Often you say, can you give me a definition or can you give me an example of X? And you get a whole page worth of text back. If you add simply one thing to say in a single paragraph, you can get close to exactly what you wanted. Ask for structured outputs. I'm always using this, and always recommending people that I talk to use this too. So down here in the example, I include a snippet which says, provide the key important points in bullet points, summarized in a sentence, and start each bullet point with a word that summarizes that point. So that's like a very structured format for my output. Not only is it useful for maybe just helping you to absorb the information which ChatGPT has spat out, but maybe it's useful because you actually need your output in a certain format, potentially for a part of your essay or for something which is going to be processed by code, and it needs to have a structured format. It may need to be in bullet points. It may need to be separated key value pairs or any other kind of formatting, and you can ask for that. So this is one technique I think you can use in so many cases, is to ask for structured outputs. Clearly format your input. In this case, I didn't have an example shown just here, but it might be something like, take the following quote and summarize it. And when you do that, you've got to put the quote in there. But maybe the quote is multiple paragraphs. So how do you indicate to the chat system where the quote starts and where the quote ends? You might want to clearly format your input. And what I would do is I'd put dash, 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 dash above and below to clearly delineate, here's a section where the quote is, instruction above and instruction below that. One thing I will show you right now, a lot of people, I realize, don't know this. So let me just show you one technique. It's frozen. So line 1, if I hold shift and then press enter, I can do multiple lines. I don't think many people knew how to do multiple lines. And including, and this is one way that you can really help to format your input better. If I have 3 different parts of the input, let's say, you're a professional scientist, and then I have here's a quote, which I want you to, here's a quote, and then below that you have summarize this quote. You want those things to be separate. They're the 3 different parts of your prompt. And even just including a new line between them can really help the system to see, what are the 3 different things I need to focus on? How do I need to split this up? So that kind of formatting, that new line is certainly one thing I would include in clearly formatting your input. Shift enter to do a new line. And then finally, just be specific. Like if you want, in this case, to focus on the aspect of creativity, I've said here, then ask for that. If you know what you want, ask for it. It sounds like really generic advice, but I think a lot of the time you guys will find you're asking for something, you're not giving it enough detail. A classic example would be, create me a marketing plan. People write that into ChatGPT. It's like, well, what's your product? Who's your audience? What are you trying to do with it? Where are you at? What's your budget? So provide those kind of details to the system, and that's what, and you'll probably get something much more like what you want out. Any questions? All right. Okay, so yeah, ask for what you want. I think I have some examples somewhere, which I think we should try. Oh, and we'll get back to it. Okay, we're going to come back to that when we get to the challenges. So, second technique, provide context, provide reference text if you have it. So here's a before and after. The first one is before, and it says, define the term externalities and its significance in environmental economics. It's like, in relation to what? You're probably asking this because you have something you want to query. And so in the after, I've simply added one thing which says, explain how it applies to the following text. And that's a little prompt which suggests you're going to expect a bunch of reference which you can refer to in your answer. And then I've given it the paragraph which I'm interested in asking this question about. So include reference text. You might want ChatGPT to apply a certain technique, maybe something that you've read in a blog. Copy that and post it in and say, use this technique. You might want it to create a marketing plan for a particular product which you have the spec of. Put the spec in there so it knows these kind of details. And bring as much information as you can. Bring everything that you can into the system so that it has the context to do the job which you need it to do. Similarly, provide examples. I've got one here which says, come up with 100 clever domain names that make use of having the TLD, the thing that follows the dot, as part of the word. And I gave it these two examples. For example, itun.es for iTunes, or genius for genius. So you may have many other different kind of examples that you want to give, right? Maybe it's a quote from a certain person. Say, here's an example, name, colon, open quotes, and then put the quote there. Give that a few times. Show it the kind of structure that you're expecting output. Maybe you want to say, an example I always love to do, love to ask ChatGPT is, create bullet points, but use emojis instead of the bullets. And one way to demonstrate what that means is to say, for example, like this. Happy face emoji, fire emoji, and each of them are the bullets. So provide as many examples as you can. And again, you've probably got them from the work that you're already using. So bring those in, just copy them straight in and provide some kind of prompt which says, something as simple as this. Here's an example. Okay. This one I think can be essential for anybody. Assign a persona when you give your prompt. So describe the style of your response and tell the system to take on that character. Give it a you are prompt. You are a professional consultant. You are Harry Berg, handsome devil, going to deliver a lecture at Oxford University, something like that, right? You are an expert in public policy. You've been doing this for the past 5 years. You've worked at XYZ. You have a casual and informal tone, but you always come across as professional, and you use British English spelling. There's like a pretty comprehensive persona which you can apply as the first part of any prompt. And I've got some interesting challenges which I want to work through when we do this, but one of them, which I'll give away now, is, can you come up with a prompt that's good enough that it sounds like you? Everybody knows how they sound, but can you articulate it? Can you write down something specific enough that every time you ask ChatGPT a question, given that persona, it's going to sound like you? You might be able to get away with not writing a lot of your work and delegating it to these kind of systems, which I say as a joke, but I absolutely mean it as well, because you guys should adapt so that you can write a lot faster than anybody else. So personas. My friend, at the end, what do you do? What's your area of expertise? Climate studies. Okay, cool. So how would you describe your persona if you were trying to get ChatGPT to write in a way that you write? Maybe we can work through an example together. I am a climate studies expert. I've been doing this for how many years?
For last 1 year.
For the last 1 year. She's a real pro. Get into it quickly. You've seen XYZ example, right? I'm sure you've worked on several different case studies. Mention it. Include that in your persona.
With aerosols and clouds.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. So that kind of stuff, that'll give it a lot of context. It's going to focus on that as an area of expertise and probably bring a lot of internal knowledge to the table. Okay? That was great, thank you. Let's do one more. In the cap, in the middle, what's your area of expertise?
Me.
Your friend below. You can go next if you want. What's your area of expertise?
Relations advertising.
Okay, public relations. So how do you start your persona? Would you give to ChatGPT?
It's a real relation expert for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, what would you add on to that? Public relations expert, you've been doing this for how many years? What's your style? Would you say like, are you professional, are you casual? Do you want to write in a way that's very formal or quick or elaborate?
The practitioners.
What was that?
Like, how to say, maybe in a formal context.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly something you could add on there. Great work. So, you like to write in a formal context. Again, like our friend said, you could say, I've worked on XYZ case study, and you can bring that into these prompts to make them much closer to the kind of style that it should be writing in, right? And again, it certainly doesn't just apply to your area of expertise. You could say, okay, what's the target output? Maybe I'm writing this for a certain publication which has a certain standard format. Okay, I'm writing this for archive. How do they format things? I bet you the system knows. Any other examples? Can I just get, what would you put in your prompt? Not your personal one, but an idea of what might go in someone's prompt in your persona. In the shirt, my friend that we talked earlier. Okay, in the glasses. What kind of thing would you include? What other kind of things could you include in your persona? Yeah. We've got kind of like job title, area of expertise, case studies you've worked on, paper you're trying to publish, or publication you're trying to publish in. Any other suggestions? That's all right, ask your neighbor. What do you reckon? What was that? That's a great one. Yeah, definitely. Second languages. You can say I'm an expert between these two different relations. Okay. In the hat, what about you? Any suggestions? Yeah, what else would you put in? You think of something? Okay, your neighbor can think of something? No, your neighbor's asleep. Okay. All right. You get the idea, okay? I love the help, guys. If anybody does want to be more interactive, throw a hand up. There's no wrong answers, and I'm the one that everybody can see, and I'm the one that can embarrass myself. So you guys are totally fine. So I think that was a good dive into assigning a persona. That's another very practical technique. Raise your hand if you think you could confidently use that. Like nice and high if you could confidently use it. Otherwise, I'm going to do it again until you all say, yeah, cool. All right, good, nice. So, assign a persona. Another one, this one seems obvious. Go back and forth. Don't just expect the first response to be really good. You'd be surprised in industry how many times you see people who do this. They really try and treat these chat systems like ChatGPT like search systems where you search your prompt, where you search for something, and you expect it to be there straight away. If it's not, you say, oh well, and give up. People do that in the chat systems as well. They prompt it with something, and they say, oh, it didn't give me what I want, I give up. I'm going to go and, I'm going to go to a library, and I'm going to wait 2 hours until my friend is free so I can ask them about it. But what you should do, my advice here would be correct the system. If it gives you something which isn't in the right format, well, tell it, actually, you got this bit wrong. Actually, I don't like what you said here. Can you change that? Actually, I don't like the style you used. Actually, I forgot to tell you that I'm an expert in public policy. So you can always put that stuff back in. And that's the beauty of these chat systems, really. They are interactive, they are back and forth. So whatever else you need, you can always add it in as you go. I'm going to come back to that technique later. This one, these are more advanced techniques. So my technique mentioned here is ask the model to think. What do I mean by that? Well, there are certain prompt designs which have been shown to make models much more capable of certain tasks. They're not useful everywhere, but certainly in more complex cases. One of them is what you would call chain of thought prompting. So here, you might have a complex problem, which you have phrased in text. Maybe it's, I think I've given the example shortly of a math problem. And it's written out in text, kind of thing you might see in an exam. If you ask the system to provide an answer, and let's say you do the formatting as well, provide your answer, give no other output, it will give you an answer confidently, but it may just be completely wrong. And so the reason it's done that is because you asked it to give the answer straight away, it hasn't had time to think. So what you can do is you can add into the prompt, give me the answer to this and think it through step by step. And when you say that step-by-step process, the result that you'll get out from ChatGPT will be, okay, here was step 1. Here's what I did. Here's step 2. Here's what I did. Here's step 3. Here's what I did. Now, not only does it make it easier for you to check whether the system has done this correctly, but it also, amazingly, helps the system to answer the question itself, because it's seen the previous chain of thought which it's gone through, and it can use those words which it generated to generate the next word, so the next word is in context of that chain of thought thinking. We'll look at an example of that later. But if you have a complex problem which you think would be helpful to think through step by step, or maybe you've tried it without the step by step and you want a more elaborate and thought out answer, or you want to understand how the model thought about it, kind of interpret it like that, then you can use these two snippets. One is think the problem through step by step and show you're working. Another is that you can provide the required steps as a framework to do it. So maybe you know there is, you're going to pass a law or something like that, right? And you want to ask the system, what guidelines would you have at each step of passing this law? And you might write that and it give you back a few steps, but you realize it's missed a few as well. So you could say, here are the steps. Step 1, this happens. Then this happens. Then this happens. Then this happens. Now talk through and refer to those points. And by giving the system that kind of framework, you can have it attach its knowledge to those certain steps, and you'll be able to interpret the results really easily as well. So really useful trick. That's called chain of thought prompting. It's also useful when you write code around these systems and you want to process outputs sequentially. So you can say, okay, the first thought is do this part, give me the output, and then maybe that's kind of like extract the date from this document, and then you want to say add 10 years to this date. That would be the next prompt. You have this chain of prompts going on and on. Anyway, I won't talk too much about that. Another thing is you can ask the model after it's produced its output, especially if it's processing a complex problem, did you miss anything? Or you can say critique your answer, something like that. And it can take in all of the previous output and process that and basically answer the question like, okay, did I miss anything? And often, I think you can find good examples of this online. You'll see it says, I didn't think of this. Here's something else you should be aware of. Or, I actually made a mistake. Here's the correct answer. So again, if you want further elaboration, if you want to double check answers, or if you want to kind of just gain confidence in the answer provided, you can use these kind of prompts. So something like, did you miss anything? Are you sure about that? Check your results at the end. So you could put this one on the end of the initial prompt. Or you could ask these ones after you get the result back. Try out. So that's the way that you can ask the models to think in a funny way, all right? Okay. How are we doing? Good? Cool. What time is it? All right, making good time. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit more here, and then we are going to get into some challenges. So, so these are my most practical ChatGPT tips. These are the key things which I think can give you serious efficiency gains if you use these, okay? So I'm going to highlight them and make sure that you walk away with these in your toolkit. Number 1, notes to paragraphs. Take rough notes, turn them into fleshed out text. Number 2, tone of voice relates to the persona which I described earlier. And number 3, formatting in a structured way. So firstly, and this, guys, if you take nothing away from this lecture, this is the technique. I use it all the time. It's super useful. Turn rough notes into paragraphs. So you can save time by only needing to ever write rough notes. And then you can dump a ton of those notes into ChatGPT and say, turn this into beautiful text, formatted the way I wanted. You don't even have to worry about spelling, punctuation, grammar in your notes. You can write them down super rough and have the system flesh it out. So I make the point here of like dumping a ton of notes on a topic that you work on in 30 seconds. You can do that in 30 seconds. So yeah, dumping a ton of notes on a topic, you can do that in 30 seconds. Perfecting them might take 30 minutes. So if you can get them down, you might save all that time. Real efficiency gain. So here I said, turn the following notes into complete paragraphs. It's super rough. It's spelt wrong. There, it is inconsistent formatting. But at some points on some renewable energy or whatever, it says gov incentives mean more solar and wind power, brackets 20%. Tech breakthroughs dash 40% better solar panels, whatever. And then I said just turn this into complete paragraphs. This is so rough. It's the kind of stuff you could actually imagine taking in a meeting whilst still maintaining focus on the conversation and not looking like a fool by looking away and typing and saying, wait for me there. So take super rough notes, and then you can turn them into paragraphs by using something like this to say, turn the following notes into complete paragraphs. Try that out if you have it handy now. It's really good. It's a real efficiency gain. And if you combine this with a few of the stuff we've talked about previously, ask for what you want, provide examples, specify formatting, give a persona, then you can get really close to what we need. So challenge. Get your ChatGPT out in front of you right now and take 60 seconds to write as many rough notes about a topic as that you've been working on recently. Are you ready? Are you ready? You don't look ready. You're slouched. Are you ready? She's ready. Okay. Clock starts now. Dump down just literally rough notes about what you're working on. Come on, I want to see hands on keyboards. Go. Write down just some notes about something you've been working on recently. And I want you to produce a one-page report about that topic. Okay, 60 seconds. The clock is going. Don't think too much about it. Just get the rough notes down. Right? I just want to prove to you, in 60 seconds, we can get a full-page report. Might not be perfect, but you can perfect it later. What have you been working on recently? What was the name of the topic? What were 3 key parts of that topic? Who was someone you spoke to? What companies are involved in that space? What's something surprising you've learned? Okay, your time is up. All right, run it. Dump those notes in and just put something like, turn these notes into a full document. And what you see is that you can get something fleshed out. Looks like an interesting answer there. Okay, good. All right, anybody managed to do that? Raise your hands if that seemed to get something along the lines of what you expected. Raise your hands. Nobody? Andre got it? Yeah, cool. All right, good. So like literally, again, I'll emphasize one more time, guys. I think this trick is really useful. Maybe I'm not giving it a clear enough demonstration right now. We'll do that shortly. But I really think it can save a lot of time, okay? In fact, let's do this right now, okay? I'm gonna use that trick. So I'm gonna go new chat and 60 seconds on the clock. Okay, I've got to do, need to do a lecture on how to use ChatGPT. Oh, damn it. Reset my clock. Okay. Here's my clock. I forgot to do my shift enter. So I need to do a lecture. I want to cover essential techniques, common misconceptions. What else do I want? It's like part of the summer school program. It needs to be like 2 hours long. I need an intro. I'm an AI educator and founder and aspiring YouTuber. And bang, okay? Like go. Okay, all right, here we go. So, wow, look at that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Maybe this is how I develop the whole lecture. Maybe it is. Because, literally, 60 seconds, okay? Here's my introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to be here today as an AI educator, founder, and aspiring YouTuber to introduce you to the fascinating world of ChatGPT. This cutting-edge language model, developed by OpenAI, has the potential to revolutionize how we interact with artificial intelligence. And over the next 2 hours, we're going to explore the essential techniques to make the most out of ChatGPT and address common misconceptions that may arise when using the technology. Bang, okay? How quick was that? I could have sat for an hour and developed that. And I want you guys to do the same. Again, I cannot understate this at all. You guys are you probably need to write stuff for your degrees. So draft it like this, and I promise you it will obliterate your expectations of how productive you can be when it comes to writing. Drafting things is the biggest game changer here. Draft everything using chat systems. Draft everything. And don't ignore that advice, please. Because otherwise someone who does adhere to that advice will replace you. Actually, I'm just going to mention that right now. I'm just going to mention one big thing, which is that you should not fear being replaced by AI. You should absolutely fear being replaced by somebody who uses AI. Let that sink in. Another practical technique of mine that I would like to use. This is just a tone of voice, but again, it basically comes back to the persona which you assign. So prompt the system to respond in a certain style that matches closely with your ideal final result. So here's before, draft a response to this email, and then you dump the email in. After, I provide this persona. Here's my persona in this case. It says, you're a professional UI UX designer with a profound passion for creating intuitive and visually appealing user interfaces. You keep up to date with the latest design trends and are well-versed in user psychology. You're approachable and detail-oriented. You love collaborating with clients and developers to bring ideas to life. The difference between those two responses will be drastic. In fact, let's take a look. You might realize that we need some extra stuff in here to give it more context, but draft a response to this email. This is going to come out vanilla, right? It's pretty long, but it's thanks for expressing your interest in this upcoming website design. I'm available for a meeting, blah blah blah. You can read it, but basically it'll be very bland, and I think the key thing is they'll be able to tell you wrote that with ChatGPT. Why? Because nobody knows how to use these personas, and everybody gives it the same kind of prompts, so everybody gets the same kind of responses. And it says, as a large language model, I always speak in this obvious way, which is clearly ChatGPT. However, if we give it the prompt, it will reply significantly differently. Okay? Again, it's hard to articulate the difference, but trust me, the difference is there. So I really emphasize you guys develop personas not only for your own personalities that will reflect the work that you would typically do, but also for whatever project you're working on, right? If you start a new project, and again, I keep coming to the example of you're trying to make a publication in a certain journal, then provide context about that journal and make sure that you give it a style which is going to be well received in that publication. Am I making sense? Yes?
Yes.
Awesome. Good. Love that. So I will make a note, which is that this may be replaced by something called custom instructions in the near future. It just hasn't rolled out in the EU or the UK yet. And that custom instructions will basically be a base prompt that you can apply, that you can write in ChatGPT, and it will apply to every single request you make. So you might have the base prompt like, okay, I'm an AI educator, blah, 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 here's a little bit about me. And everything you write in ChatGPT will be primed with that as a kind of precursor to your overall prompt. So you'll get everything in the style. Or maybe you want to say, I know you're a large language model, stop telling me that. And you can put that in your base prompt. And if you're using the API, if you're doing anything programmatic with this, if you're using code to interact with these GPT models, then this is called the system message. You give it the system message, that's the first kind of part of the chat. It frames the chat. It gives context to what's going on. And that's where you can say, you're a customer service bot on my website, designed to answer questions about this topic. Here's an example of the topic. Reply in a friendly tone. That'll be your system message. Good. Excellent. So 3 tone of voice challenges. I want us to spend a good bit of time here. Maybe we'll spend 15 minutes here before we wrap up a little bit later. But we'll spend 10 minutes here actually. So try and write these personas out. So firstly, a professional consultant in a way that makes everything sound elaborate and fancy. Secondly, your favorite video game character. What would their persona be? How do you articulate that? You know them pretty well, but how do you actually articulate that? And then thirdly, which is the ultimate challenge, which will be really practically useful going forward, is can you write a persona which describes you? Can you write something that you can put at the beginning of every prompt such that when you interact with the system back and forth, it actually sounds like it could be you, okay? Go, and I want to like grab a few of you and try and help. So if you get like 2 sentences in and you're not sure what comes next, let me know, and I'll suggest how we could adapt that, okay? So have a go at those personas. Okay. So I'm going to continue this now, and I want to run through the kind of how I would use this, right, and how I would continue to gradually improve my my persona. So here I'm just going to start from these notes, right, and I'm going to go through a few things here, right. So firstly, I'm going to give it that, and I'm going to say, because I want this in a full paragraph, I'm just going to format this firstly. So this is like roughly my persona, but I want it in a nice paragraph. Take these bullet points and turn them into a paragraph, into a short paragraph, which summarizes your persona. And, actually, there's nothing to do with that, is it? It's just, I'm an AI educator, founder, aspiring YouTube, relaxed and fun. Maybe, what else am I? Enthusiastic. What else should I put in there? I'm an expert. And I come across, professionally. Let's see what comes out here. So I'm just trying to make my persona firstly. So again, I'm using my bullet point technique to turn this into a persona. So here, bang, there's a good persona, which I can start with. So now I can get to the point which I wanted you guys to get to. So you would write something like that. Here's my persona. It says, I'm an educator, founder, and aspiring YouTuber, known for my relaxed and fun approach to teaching. With enthusiasm and expertise in the field of AI, I'm passionate about sharing my knowledge with others. As a professional in the industry, my goal is to make complex topics accessible and enjoyable, fostering positive learning experience for all. That's a pretty good persona. Now, I really want to emphasize the point of this. The point of this is not to hit enter now. The point of this is to prime a good response. So you would say something like, I would say something like, create a, what do I want to do here? I want to say, create an intro speech for a lecture, and let's say like for a YouTube video on AI in healthcare, something like that, right? So I just want to really highlight, there's 2 parts to this, right? First part is the persona. The persona is not the instruction at all. It's not even related to the instruction, but it informs the instruction how you should actually respond, right? So this is the actual task. Most people, they would just send this into ChatGPT, and you can imagine it's going to come out sounding obviously like ChatGPT as a large language model. Here's my suggestion on a YouTube video, and it's going to be really damn obvious that you didn't write this. So that's the point of a persona. The persona makes it sound like you, like someone else, or like a certain format which you need for your specific task. So when I write that and run that, it's going to give me something which is much more in line with what I want. That's how you use these personas. The personas aren't the message themselves. So for example, this is not an instruction. That doesn't give the system a task, but you want to prime that with a task for it to do. Okay. Now, someone I saw, they did something like this. Here is my persona. And they said, fun expert, like that, okay? And then I'll just say like, can you give me a paragraph for my persona? Something like that. And I'll say, okay, I just want to change it a bit. Start with, I am Again, like giving it feedback here, right? Going back and forth, like I said, asking it for what I want, using the techniques from earlier, ask for specific formatting. Specific formatting was one thing I mentioned. So I want to start with I am, make it less than 3 sentences. Run that. Okay, cool. So there we go, right? There's a persona. Now, here's the point. People were not happy with this. And so then they would write things like, they would write like expert in AI, and then they would say something like more professional. Okay, bang. And then it changes it, okay? And so now this is a really good example of the back and forth nature. You can go back and forth and refine it and refine it and refine it, and you can say more complex language, whatever, like that. And now you can begin to evolve this gradually back and forth. If it's not something you like, ask for it different. Ask for it different until you get something that you do like. Sometimes it doesn't come out as nicely as this. Sometimes it comes out like a big chunk of text, and it's not quite what you wanted. But what you can do in this case, my technique, I'll talk about this in a second, would be find all the different pieces of feedback you gave it and combine them all together. So eventually, you gave it all of these different things. And now, I would start a new chat and say, there's my persona. So take all of the feedback that you gave it and then start again fresh. That can let you get there straight away. So this is what we saw over there, right, Bella? It was, we were going back and forth and it got really messy and huge. So what we could do is just wait till we get it somewhere we like, and then take all the feedback we gave it, summarize it in one, and send it through. Okay. Do we have a hard stop? Is there something after this? We don't have to rush off, okay? Okay, cool, good. Because I'm going to keep going for a little bit just to cover a few other fun things. But hopefully that covers the challenge of tone of voice. Another challenge for formatting. I'll save this one for you guys to do later. But request specific formatting required for your output. It could simply be a format required for a document you're writing, but here's an example of that. So I started off with below the body of text about climate change, create a title that captures the topic, and then I gave it this big body of text. If I put that in, it could come out in any format, basically. However, if I then say, use subheadings throughout, turn the following abstract paper into a bullet-pointed list of A and B, keywords and key findings, and use a relevant emoji to present each bullet point, then I'm going to get a much more specific output that's formatted in the way I want, or maybe in the way that I need. So look at this. This is much closer to what we actually wanted, because we had an idea of that format first, and we took an extra 20 seconds to describe it. So it's got the emoji, it's got the keywords, it's got the emoji for the key findings, and then it just puts those in bullet points, just like we wanted. Perfect, right? So again, a few things combined there, but be specific about what you want, ask for specific formatting, and we also, I guess that's also an example of including a reference text, one of my techniques from earlier. So you can see how we're going to play in with things now, bringing them in and out as and when we need them. So have a go at that one in your own time. Actually, let's do this one quickly. So if you've got the presentation in front of you, take this text. Here's a text about how to make a grilled cheese sandwich, and here's an output. What prompt do you have to give to make the output formatted like this? So the challenge here is, can you describe how that's formatted? Let's do this one together. Let's say I firstly take this, right? And I say, I say summarize, or I say like create a recipe. Let's say create a recipe from this. If I run that, it's not going to look like that, right? Maybe this is a format that my grandmother has used in her recipe book for the past 10 years with the emojis and everything, of course. And so I want to continue that format. So the question is, how do I describe that format? Can anybody give me, there's many different things you can point out here. What will be one sentence you add to your prompt which makes it more like this? Sorry, who was that? So you could say, yeah, so step by step. So talking about this part, right? So how would I describe that? So if I just write step by step, I don't think it's quite going to give you that. But we could be more specific, right? So we could say, you know, write each step on a line starting with step x, where x is the number of the step. Right? That's very specific. Yeah. So that you can be pretty sure that it's going to get that right. And you know, you could even go get further, add one of my techniques from earlier, e.g. step 1, step 2. Like that, right? If I run that, okay, it hasn't quite got that right, but well, it has, but they're just separated by bullet points, okay? So nice. It's got the step 1, step 2. So that's a bit better. How do we improve it further? Let's just copy this and then create a new chat. Okay, so oh dear, copy the whole thing. Really doesn't like that. Okay, so we're back here. What else can I add to this to make it look more like this? Here's an obvious one, right? How do I do this one? Sorry, I'm having trouble detecting voice here. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But where specifically? Can you be some more specific? Because yeah, maybe as the bullet point, right? So you know, this is basically a bullet pointed list. Bullet 1, slice of bread, and now we want to say, okay, you know, create a bullet point list, but use emojis as a bullet point, right? Create a bullet point list of ingredients. And then I'll say use emojis as the bullet points, okay? Let's see what this does now. Better, okay? See, now we're really getting somewhere. So you can see, like this is a great example. Ask for what you want. If you want it with bullet point emojis, ask for it because it can do that. And so on. Right here, I've also got kind of all capital title with a subheading separated by a dash. I could easily describe that. This is a trivial example for the recipe book, but you can imagine there might be something where you actually need it formatted in a certain way, either because that's the standard, which is always written in, or that's because you know, for some other reason, whatever. So that's I think a good challenge. Practice that later. It'll give you an idea of, okay, how can I write better prompts? How can I be more specific and ask for what I want? So combining these most practical tips all into one, the ultimate prompt right here is, I've got tone of voice to start with. It says, you're an academic writing a research paper to be published in archive. And then I've got notes to paragraph. It says, turn the following rough notes into paragraphs. I've got 4 different bullet points. They're really rough, different format. I dumped them down in 30 seconds, but it was really quick. And then finally, I've got formatting. It says, format the results with a section for each of the following. Section title, introduction, background, context, our approach. And so if I take that prompt, put it in here, you can guarantee it's going to be better than if I just said, like, write me an intro research paper draft. So you know, look, it's got the section title like I wanted. It's got the introduction down there. It's got the background context section already elaborated. Look at that. It's all done immediately. And then it's got our approach. And it's taken all of these notes and summarized them. And it's written them in a format which is suitable to archive, I'd imagine. Makes sense? Anybody confused? Damn, I'm good. All right. So there's kind of all my combination of the most practical tips. If you take three things away with you, take home. Notes to paragraphs, use tone of voice, apply a persona, and formatting. Ask for specific formatting. I use things all the time, every day. Okay, so here is one key thing that I think everybody should know if they want to adapt to the AI revolution, and that is, think, I am a manager, I manage the AI systems. This is the frame of mind that you need to be in to really be that person who can use AI so that you can outsmart everybody who does it. Like I said, you're not at risk of being replaced by an AI. You are at great risk of being replaced by somebody who uses AI. So you got to think, I'm a manager and I manage the AI systems. What do I mean by that? I mean, here's an example. Focus on the big picture and the overall goal, and focus on the big picture and the overall goals. Don't get bothered about the details. You can leave those to the AI system. It's bright enough, it's sharp enough to figure those things out. And this is exactly what you do if you're a manager. You could say, hey, look, here's the overall goal, which I need you to achieve. Please go and do it. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to write it. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do in every individual step. I'll leave that to you. And in the same way, you can delegate these AI systems by providing those overall goals and letting it figure out the details for itself. But if you were going to do that as a manager, you would review their work, of course, right? You wouldn't say, go and do this work and publish it to our biggest clients. I don't care what it looks like. You must review it. You always must review it. So here's before. It says write a video script, and it says the first scene should contain a person. The second scene should be 30 seconds long. There should be 7 different scenes. These are all too much detail. You don't need that much detail. It can figure these things out on its own, and you can just provide the overall goal. The goal is we want to convince our clients that we've got the best product by creating this video script about X product, okay? Give it overall goal, let it figure out the details. So in this case, this is the only example where my after prompt is actually smaller than the first one. I've added less detail. I've let it just focus on the big picture. So in relation to that, how I destroyed all of my company data with ChatGPT. So what we were doing was I was using GitHub Copilot, which is it writes code for you inside your code editor. And I gave it a prompt. I gave it a comment, and I said something like, I want you to take all these files and rename them. I've got loads of different files. I don't really like the format of the date being at the end. I want the date at the beginning. So rename all these files for me. There's like 1,000 different files. All of them represent a user. And it's basically like user data. So I got the code generated for me, and I scanned it, and I said, yeah, great, looks good. Just scanned it. I hit tab to complete it, and then I hit run to run the code. And thinking, okay, bang, it's already renamed the files for me. However, I hadn't reviewed it. I hadn't done my job as a manager to actually review this code and make sure it was right. And what it had actually done was not just rename the files, it had gone, taken all their names down, deleted all of them, and created a blank new file with all the new names formatted. So it destroyed all the data which I had. That was how I destroyed all of my company data with ChatGPT. Luckily, I had a really smart trick to get it back. That's a different story. Ask me about it later if you want. It was really close and really hacky. That's how you survive. So to illustrate that, this is basically the example here. My point is, you are the manager. You must manage the AI system. What that means is, just like a manager, you must review your subordinate's work. In this case, you must review the work the AI system has done. And this is the key reason why you will not be replaced by an AI system. You'll be replaced by someone who can use an AI system. Someone who can manage it better than you. Someone who can delegate their work to the AI system and then review it correctly. So here's what happened. Look at these two pieces of code. They look very similar. I know not many of you are programmers, but they're very similar. And there's only a few different changes in them. But this one, it deletes everything, and then it creates the new file. And this one, it goes through and it copies the new file before deleting it. So very similar, but you got to actually pay attention and scan through it, or more than scan through it. Like I said, I just scanned through it. You got to pay attention to the detail, make sure it's right. Test things, always get other people testing for you as well. Can't emphasize on that enough. This is dangerous, this is safe. Okay. Video script drafting. This was an example which I saw in industry literally just a few days ago. And they've got a system where you can give it a prompt and it generates a video for you. It's really impressive. But basically the whole team was using it saying, generate me a video on healthcare in the workplace. Something like that, right? That was their entire prompt. So starting off with that, how could we do a lot better? So the initial prompt was generate me a video about workplace safety. You should have loads of ideas. You should have loads of ideas. So, my friend, what would you do? What's the first thing you do? You get an easy task. How would you improve this just one bit? What do you mean an environment? Like a background, context? Yeah, that's what kind of thing it's all about. So yeah, like, so what kind of thing would be, here's the background context. What do you think would go in there? Maybe like, who are we? Like, we're a big company selling workplace safety equipment, something like that, right? So there, okay, there's a bit of context. Maybe we could format that as a persona at the beginning. So we could say, you are a video designer working for a company selling workplace safety equipment. Okay, maybe we can add examples in as well, like e.g., helmets, whatever, high visibility vests. Cool. How could I improve it further? Bella, what do you think? No idea. Michelle, what about you?
Maybe ChatGPT like how long the video?
How long? Yeah, brilliant. That's a really good one. So, so how would you say that? How would you write that in here? The video. Yeah, cool. So I'll say, yeah, the time should be 5 minutes long. Great. Yeah, that's a really good differentiator, right? Because it may have gone and developed a whole feature-length movie, or it might have developed a TikTok. So yeah, you need to specify this. Great stuff. Great work, Michelle. Okay, row behind. Any suggestions? Any of you? Oh, Bella?
I realize the importance of potential privacy.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So how would you write that in?
The core value, maybe the core value of
The core value. Let's say the core values of our business, right? So now we can talk a little bit more about context, right? I don't know if privacy makes the best sense here, but maybe something like, I don't know, like sustainability, right? So all of our high-vis vests are made from, sustainable crops or whatever. Or maybe it's something like, I don't know, operational efficiency means we can provide the cheapest products. Cool. So let's just run over what we've got so far. So we've got the persona of the bot. We've got some examples of the products they sell. We've got more context about the business. We've got asking for a specific output format. Excellent. And then we've got a task. Any other suggestions? What are the things we talked about? Who's that?
style.
Yeah. Well, how would you put that in? Because this could be anything. This could be like a black and white movie, or it could be like an enterprise ad with a voiceover. I don't know. So I guess, we could say, the theme of the video should be, I don't know, like, suitable for an advert, maybe. Yeah, talk about the output. What's the output goal? Okay, it's going to be an ad. And used by an enterprise company. Something like that. Cool. So providing more context. I guess this could kind of go with the business, right? No, I guess that's the theme of the output. That's fine. Cool. Great. I mean, look, we've already made that a lot more comprehensive, right? And you can imagine if it adheres to all those things, it's going to be closer to what you wanted. So let's just run through, was there anything else we missed? Let's look at some techniques from earlier. Notes to paragraphs. Again, we could have sat there for like 30 seconds and been like, okay, cool. So like, there's going to be an introduction to our company. There's going to be an introduction to our products. There's going to be why you should go with us. And there's going to be a call to action. Okay. I could have spent 30 seconds, write those things, and I could have got a lot out of that. I could say, I could do an ask the model to think. I could say something like, talk through several different options and pick the best one. That's something I could add on the end of my prompt. The output would contain, okay, here's option 1, here's option 2, here's option 3, and then the model would say, well, actually, considering these different goals of yours, which you've told me, I think option 2 is better because of this. That's a nice, pretty proud of myself for that example. I think that would be a pretty good one. Go back and forth. Again, whatever it spits out, you could say, nah, this isn't professional enough, or this is too long, change it. Assign a persona, we did that. Demonstrate examples. Maybe you've got some previous video script. You could just dump that in. You could say something like, say this here. Here's an example snippet from a video we made previously that we love. Okay, and then here, this snippet, interestingly, it might contain like many paragraphs, right? So what I would do is I would do dash, 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 and then put all of that in here, and then dash, 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 dash. So those lines, they clearly indicate the start and end of the prompt, or the start and end of that quote in the prompt, right? Cool. Yeah. What else? We've kind of got those. Ask for context, ask for what you want, and we haven't fallen for any myths. Excellent. That is a lot better, guys. That's a lot better of a prompt right there. Okay. I know we're over time. Thanks for bearing with. Finding prompts, there's 2 techniques here. I'll just blast over. One of them is if you don't know what to tell the system, you could say something like, you could say, you start off with this, right? I want to create a week-by-week plan for a marketing campaign. You haven't given it all the details. You should give it more context, but off the top of your head, you can't think of what those things should be. Or it's going to take you too long to write that bloody list down. So instead, you can say, on the end of your prompt, ask me 5 simple questions with a distinct focus that you would need to know the answers to in order to help, and then use them to achieve your goal. So if I do this, if I run this boring old prompt, it's going to give me the most generic, the most obviously ChatGPT written output possible. However, if I go with this one, what it's firstly going to do, hopefully, is give me a series of questions. And now it's kind of it's taken that burden straight off me, and it's bringing it directly to me. Here's what I need to know from you. So I don't even have to think about that. I don't even have to think about what goes in the prompt. I just answer these questions. Okay, well, what's my primary goal? It's like sell more products. Who's your target audience? Teenagers. I'm using Instagram and YouTube to advertise this. I don't have any email accounts, so I need the strategy to bring that up. I've got £1 million this budget, and I've got 10 people working on the team, and I like the idea of this kind of content, whatever. So you've been the manager. You've delegated all of that to this system, treating it essentially as a marketing agent. If you worked with a marketing agent, they would come to you and they would ask you those questions. So you basically prompted it to take on that role, and you don't even have to come up with a prompt now. So I really like that technique. The second one, Bella, this is what we looked at, was, oh no, sorry, that's a different thing. Yeah, this is kind of what we looked at. So let's say you want to find a prompt that you want to use repeatedly. Maybe it's like, I'm going to take different research papers, I'm going to all format them in a summary, but it's always going to have the same format. You want to find a prompt that you're going to use repeatedly so you can save. So instead of just going back and forth until it gets to the desired output you want, you go back and forth, and at the end of that, you take all of your feedback, which you gave each time, and then you combine that into a single prompt. So it might be something like this. Create a slogan for my ski company. Okay, and then, so I've got my first result, right? Now I can give feedback. I can say, you know, shorter and funnier. Something like that. Powder up your life, okay? And I can say, you know, more professional. So I'm looking at it and I'm immediately gathering feedback on what I like and what I don't. So now, at the end of the day, if I needed to do this, maybe I need to do this on a monthly basis, create a new slogan for an ad or whatever, then I can say, okay, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to copy this in here. And now I've just collated all of the feedback which I gave it, which seems to be everything that I liked. So I can say, create a slogan for my ski company, and I can make very small changes to this, which is short and funny, but professional. Bang, there's your prompt, okay? So you see how through the back and forth interaction, we've gathered our feedback, comes very naturally as a human. You can see quickly, I don't like that, it's not professional enough. And then you can collate all of those, and there you've got a prompt, which works every time, okay? Trivial example, but you know, you can think of something more complicated would work too. All right, so that trick I like. So quick run through, and then we'll wrap up. Use these, quick run through, then we'll wrap up. Use what we've learned to tell me how we can improve these prompts. Okay, so number one, it says create an outline for my essay on the topic of cryptocurrency regulation. So, my friend down here, what do you think? What's the first thing I could do to improve that? More detail, yeah, like what? Sorry? Yeah, okay, what other ideas are going to be in it? You know, I can maybe bullet point those down, is that what you're thinking? Yeah, cool, good. My friend here?
You could give it specific, you can't give it specific sources.
Well, you can't give it links, but you could give it like, here's some examples of what I like. Give it reference text. Maybe, you know, like here's a paragraph I thought was really important because I've done my research. It still requires that human element. I've done my research and I chose that I really like this paragraph. So I'm going to say on the bottom, you know, refer to the themes in this piece of text. Put that in. Love that idea. Love that idea. So be more specific, add reference text. What else can we do? Picking on the front rows here.
So what kind of person you are?
Yes, exactly. The persona. The persona always works, right? So, you know, okay, so what kind of things would you put in the persona here?
Maybe an aspect in some areas and what kind of town?
Yeah. So kind of what are we doing here? Where in the world are we talking about? Are we talking about in China? Are we talking about in the US? Are we talking about global? Something like that. So that would be context, you know? Maybe like again, I come back to my example all the time. If this is going to be published in what paper? Because they all have different formats. Any other ideas? I guess like the tone of voice, right? That was the one we talked about earlier. So is it professional? Is it kind of joking? You know, I don't know. Is this going to be, where's this going to be published? Is it going to be published on Wired as a blog, or is it going to be published in a paper? Those kind of things are important. Great, cool. Anyone want to shout anything else out? Back at the back. Anyone want to get involved, or over here with the camera? No. Any suggestions? All right, move on. Improve this one. Okay, this is a big one. It simply says it's a big body of reference text about parenting styles. And it says, summarize the main conclusions. How could I do better? How could I write a better prompt? In the yellow?
Maybe how long the summary is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do I want every single point listed here to make sure I can miss anything? Or do I want this to be 10 bullet points? Or do I want just a sentence? Okay. Middle back in the brown. What do you think? How can I improve this? You, yeah.
Maybe we also need some persona.
Yeah, the persona again, right? You know. Yeah, again, it always applies. It always applies. So the next question I ask you, the first person, you can get an easy one by Telling the persona, right? Cool. I'm glad I got someone with a booming voice back there. I can really hear you. Great stuff. Neighbors, any other suggestions? How would you improve this? Yeah, exactly. Well, what's the output purpose here? Is it to inform parents on best practices? Is it to inform research on the pros and cons? It could be anything like that. Yeah, exactly. So what's the output? I feel like that could be its own technique, which I haven't outlined here, but yeah, aim for the output. Brilliant. And your neighbor, did you have any suggestions how we can improve that? What have we got? Someone shout out some techniques and then she can fill them in. So what techniques have we talked about? Anyone over here? Yeah, we could say kind of summarize the keyword or maybe bullet point the keyword to start with so that you've got an idea of where this comes from. What about techniques? What techniques? Don't tell me the actual thing we should do here, but what techniques have we talked about so far? Maybe in the middle, in the blue?
Maybe ask some questions.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So again, yeah, another good technique. Ask some questions. How would you? So with the pink laptop, what would you write if you wanted to get the system to ask you some questions? What would you write on the end of this prompt? Wait, let her. Above. Yeah. It's not a trick question. It's basically the answer is in the question. If I had this as a prompt and I'm not quite sure what to ask it, what exactly would I put on the end to get it to ask me some questions? A pass on this one. Not a trick question. I mean, literally you can say, ask me 5 questions about what else I should tell you to achieve this goal. Something like that, all right? Cool. So yeah, great suggestions there, all kind of stuff. And finally, improve this prompt. The prompt is 3 parts. The overall task is check the solution to this question and answer. And the first part is a question, and the second part is an answer. How could I improve this? It's a great example, one of the more complex techniques I talked about earlier. Show you're working. Yes, exactly. I love that. Because if you put this in, what you might get, maybe not all the time, maybe 1 time out of 10, it might say, looks good. And that's the entire output. It's like, correct. But it hasn't thought it through, and maybe it hasn't come to the right conclusion. So if you did say something like, show you're working step by step, or check your results, or talk us through how you got this answer, then you'd come to something which at least is informed by its own logic leading to that point. And that does really seem to help. Okay, so anybody got any prompts? Anybody want to do a workshop here? Prompt surgery? Stuck with any suggestions? Is there anything you've been trying to do that hasn't worked? Now's your chance. Now you're already looking forward to the last slide. Okay, grab me after if there's anything you want particular help with. Other than that, people, thank you, and stay in touch. And I look forward to seeing you next week, I think. That's all. Cool, hopefully that was helpful. I'm around now. If you want to grab me, feel free. Yeah, that's all from me, folks. Also, actually, let me shout out, podcast launching soon, where I'm going to be talking about how to survive the AI apocalypse. Everything from the Terminator scenario to what this means for your day-to-day work and your day-to-day jobs. So I'm really excited for that. Hopefully I'll see you there. grab my very amateur looking YouTube right now, and I'll see you at 100,000 subscribers. That's it. Okay.